By the end of this session, you should have a basic understanding of how to automate your own reports using Python, Markdown, and CSS in JupyterLab with the open source CrossCompute Framework. If you buy our training and support package, you can ask very specific questions about your report during the training sessions, which we can resolve through support tickets. The 5 basic skills you should know: how to answer your own questions. We'll show you how to structure your workflow. Then you prototype your tables, charts, and maps. Write the configuration files for automating the report. And finally, add the Markdown text and CSS styling. The most fundamental skill is the ability to answer your own questions by searching on the internet. So, simple skill, but even the most advanced analysts and engineers still do it. So, quick note: when you search for an error, for example, on Stack Overflow, you typically want to look at the answer that has the most number of upvotes, which may or may not be the official one. So the most number of upvotes is typically the one you want to read. So fundamental skill, but still the most important for teaching yourself how to get around an issue. When you're starting from the beginning with your report, basic tips: imagine who will be reading your report, identify some specific people, and think of the very specific questions that your readers will want to answer when they read your report. Then sketch your tables, charts, and maps to answer those questions. And then go through a couple iterations testing that dummy report on your potential readers. Once your readers give the go-ahead, then you can invest time into actually prototyping the tables, charts, and maps. So find some existing tables, charts, and maps on the internet that look like what you want to make. And another essential tip is to reduce your data set into partial data sets to reduce the iteration time. So you want to take your gigabyte data set and trim it down to maybe 50 or 100 rows. And finally, once your tables, charts, and maps look good, then you can write the config files that tell CrossCompute how to run your report and test the report over the full data sets. And finally, add your markdown text and styling. So how to find existing tables and charts. So we have our official CrossCompute examples repository. We'll also be posting different examples on our YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn, so you can take a look. When you're making your charts, so lots of popular packages in Python have a gallery that you can take the example code and modify it to your purpose and also understand line by line what does what. So find the closest example that matches what you want to make and start from there. If your report pulls directly from an API endpoint, that can severely hamper your iteration time. So as you're prototyping it, try to use a static data set that's been trimmed down to a small number of rows. And once you've got that going, then you can add the live data pull back in, but maybe with a fallback that goes to the dataset in case the API endpoint isn't up. When you're actually writing the code for it, as with any other coding exercise, write the pseudocode using comments first. And try to use readable variable names. You want to be able to, you or somebody else, most likely yourself, will have to read the code again later. So use good variable names. In this case, you don't have to do as many tests because the tests are visual. So when you're done with that, the actual report automation itself is a collection of YAML config files. So as an overview, there's a config file that tells CrossCompute what to do when you press the button in JupyterLab for our JupyterLab extension. We have some YAML files that tell CrossCompute how to run your report, how to style it, and this is the Jupyter notebook that contains your code. And the actual report text is in a markdown file. So here, for example, in this example report where we'll take the load profile for Rapid City in South Dakota, you can see how it looks. So this is a residential load profile. So I'm going to go back into the actual report. You could see we have a report YAML in the section residential. So sections, this is the path. Let's go into sections, residential. So we have our markdown template. And so I'll go into this into more technical detail in another video. But the main point is styling is done with standard CSS, and you can use Markdown and Python to actually make the rest of your report.